And we could do a clap in 3, 2, 1. That's the most wonderful sound in the entire world. Everybody clapping at once. All right, I got to crack open a cold one because it's the annual. And
nice sound effects there.
I know. It's not a soundboard. Absolutely not. No, I'm not actually drinking a beer this time around because I was very terribly hungover yesterday, and now I'm scared of alcohol, and I just didn't feel like today would be a good day to do that. So, having myself a nice energy drink, because...
Okay, but caffeine is dehydrating, too.
Let's get on with the show.
Michael, drink some water.
Yes. This is the I Read Comic Books podcast. I am your host, Mike Rappin. With me this week, you wouldn't believe it, there are 4 fantastic human beings with me. This is the annual episode for I Read Comic Books, and oh my goodness, do we have a show today. Mostly because we've just got 4 amazing humans that are here with me, a piece of garbage. We've got Paul Jasley.
Hello.
Tia Vasiliou.
Hey.
Nick White.
Hey.
And Kait Lamphere.
Hi.
This is annual number 4, which means this is like year 5 of I Read Comic Books. This is the 5th anniversary of us doing this insane show. We haven't yet hit 200 episodes, but that's coming. Let me ask the question I ask every single week, though. How have you been? How have comic books been? How have you been? Let's start with you, Paul.
Thanks,
I
Mike.
can't say anything. I'm sorry.
It's all right, Mike. We forgive you. I'm just happy to be here with you all today. I'm staying inside and keeping warm. We have some winter weather advisories here in West Michigan, so I'm just staying inside today. So other than that, things are going pretty well. I actually read GoBots number 3 earlier today, and I wanted to talk about it with you because I know this was your pick a couple episodes ago, right, Mike?
Yes, and Paul, I'll be completely honest with you. I haven't read it yet because... I've been doing this weird thing. I'm reading all sorts of backlog books before I get to my regulars, and I'm just way behind now on everything.
I understand. I'm the same way sometimes.
Yeah. Well, what did you think?
This book is absolutely bonkers in the best possible way. This is, of course, Tom Scioli doing his take on the... I don't want to say beloved because I don't think anyone really remembers them fondly.
Maybe
GoBots
occasionally
franchise.
remembered.
Yeah, vaguely remembered GoBots. This book is even weirder and crazier and more bonkers than his legendary Transformers vs. G.I. Joe book, which we all loved on the show, I think. And what's great about GoBots is that it's a 5-issue miniseries, and this is issue 3, and I literally have no idea how he's going to finish it because the hyper acceleration of the story is incredible. So basically, by the end of issue 2, the evil GoBots have taken over the planet. And then issue 3... I don't want to give too much away, but there's a thing where you have these astronauts traveling through space, and they pass by an inhabited planet, and they land on it. Like, boy, I wonder what planet this is because there's no human life on it. And then there's a big, Twilight Zone-esque reveal at the end of the issue, which is pretty obvious. What planet it really is.
Mars.
So the fact,
and Elon Musk's car is already there.
Very close. A planet with no living humans and a bunch of very angry GoBots on it. So put 2 and 2 together there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that this book is so crazy over the top, it is hyper compressed storytelling. Like Tom Scioli just crams so much stuff onto each page. Like there's pages that have at least 25, if not 30 panels on them. Like it's just bonkers storytelling, and I live for it, and I love it. And I can't wait to see how he's going to wrap up this 5-issue miniseries at this point.
I got to catch up. I think that's what I'm going to have to do tonight.
That book basically makes Transformers vs. G.I. Joe like high concept.
Yeah. If you want like the Cliff Notes version of that book, that's what this GoBots one is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Tia, how about you? What have you been up to? What have you been reading? All that jazz.
It was kind of a crazy week for me. I spent part of it like killing myself in the gym with friends, and then part of it being kind of under the weather and sleeping for like 30 straight hours.
Okay.
It was like there was no in between.
High points, low points, all over.
Yeah. And I couldn't decide what to read this week. I just, I don't know. I was feeling indecisive, so I threw it to Twitter. And Danny, our like favorite person, he recommended Buffy #1, which is the new Buffy that is being launched over at Boom. I guess Dark Horse lost the license. I don't know what's going on there, but
We don't know what's going on behind the scenes over there. All we know is it's now at Boom, right?
yeah. And so it seems like it's starting over again. This is being written by Jordi Belair with art by Dan Mora and colors by Raul Angulo. And so, okay, full disclosure, I'm not a Buffy fan, and that's putting it a little mildly. But I wanted to give it a chance and have an open mind, so I was like, okay, I will give it a shot. I didn't like the show when it first came out. I never really watched it, and I am in general not a fan of Joss Whedon. This was even before all of his like stuff came out. Like, I'm just super vindicated by all of that now. And so I thought, okay, what if I read this and tried to put all of that aside and kind of approach the book as though I'd never heard of Joss Whedon or the show or Buffy or any of it? Like, how would that reading go? Also, fun fact, a bunch of Sunnydale filming locations are actually from the town I grew up in.
Oh, so you went to Buffy's high school and had the murderous principal and all that stuff?
And her house is like it's like in my neighborhood, and yeah, so like
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, that's just a weird fun fact. But the book just seems to be a pretty basic, like, I'm a normal teenage girl with normal teenage anxieties. Like, how do I make friends? But also, I'm the chosen one vampire slayer. Which,
Yes.
okay, like Slayers, they're just like
I'd rather
you.
take on that over trying to make friends. Jeez, yikes. Give me the monsters.
Yeah.
So Buffy has like a crappy teenage job at a fast food place, and then she has a meet cute with Xander and Willow where she like saves them from being attacked by a monster, and then they're like, oh damn, you're not like normal teenage girls, you're special. Because of course. And can I just say, it kept really throwing me off how Xander is spelled in the book. Like, spell your name right and fix your face, please, right. Xander, in Buffy.
We have the correct spelling of Xander on our show, and then there's this other one.
I remember the first time I spelled Xander's name wrong, and his mom got so mad. She was like, that is not how we spell Xander's name. I was like, oh man, shit got real fast here.
Shout out to Xander's mom for doing things correctly.
She's keeping it real, let me tell you.
Also, here's a question. I know I'm supposed to be pretending I've never heard of this, but like, isn't Willow supposed to be a witch? How does Giles guy not, like, how did he miss that?
Kate, I'm going to let you take this one.
Yeah, Willow becomes a witch in like season 3 or something of the TV show, so I think we're just not there yet.
Got it.
I also noticed that she jumped right into being hot. Like, she was adorable in season 1, but she's hot in the comics.
So I actually did feel like I needed to bring a picture of her to my hairdresser and be like, that's the haircut that I want. Anyway, I have to say the artwork is a little bit prosaic for my taste, which I think with a licensed property probably makes sense because, like, you're not necessarily using this to make any kind of grand artistic statement or anything. You're basically trying to communicate in a really straightforward way. So from an objective perspective, I guess that works for what it's supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at a lot of the other Boom properties that are licensed work, they get really close on trying to match the art style to the original source material, and that's a lot easier with, say, cartoons, but I think that's kind of like Boom's way of doing things, even with Power Rangers.
Yeah, sure. And, like, you know, they're recognizable as the actors, I guess. But to be honest with you, look, okay, Buffy is not feminist. It just isn't. I'm sorry. And I know that it like has been that for a lot of people, and I don't think that people who have gotten something useful out of it, like, I think that's great, and I don't think that it diminishes what people get out of it to also critique it, but I do think that it is important to critique the problems. Like, those can coexist. And basically, just because it's recasting women at the top of the power dynamic doesn't mean that it's feminist. Like, that's not what a strong female character necessarily has to be. Just because she like is fighty doesn't make her strong necessarily. I think that an actual feminist scenario would be doing more to dismantle that power structure altogether. You know, it's like also, I think Joss Whedon likes to torture his strong woman characters and punish them a little bit. And they're all these patriarchal archetypes of women, right? Like the fighty one, the witch, etc. And I don't think it does much other than imbue them with power, with masculine or patriarchal power that ultimately makes their struggles or their downfall in some cases more satisfying for a patriarchal audience, because it's like a weak woman character would be too easy to break. It's more satisfying if there's more power in the character. So I just have a real problem with it. And I know that Jordi Belair is a big fan of the show and a big fan of I don't want to diminish that it has meant a lot to people. And
Sure.
her love for the character and for the franchise is really evident in the book. And unfortunately for me, it just doesn't connect since I'm really not a fan. And at the same time, I can see how the book could be popular with new fans who have never heard of the show, because it kind of is starting from square one and sort of explaining everything from the beginning. And I could see it being popular with diehard fans because I assume there's a bunch of Easter eggs in there. Mm-hmm. The basic thing. So like Buffy, she has the meet cute with Xander and Willow. So now they're friends and Xander and Willow know her deal. And then later on, she has a scene where her mom is momming her about homework and she's reading a comic book instead of studying because relatable. And then she has to go fight some monster and he has a medallion that protects him because there's a Borgin and Burke's kind of store, I guess, where it's mean lady
Sorry,
works.
this is all just little bits from the show that are just flashing through my mind as you're telling me
I don't know
this.
what this stuff is, but there's ladies kind of mean, and then someone who I presume is meaner than her shows up and wants to buy stuff, and there's that I'm sorry, we're closed power struggle scene where it's oh no, you actually are not in charge here because this person's gonna not respect your store hours.
I see.
I actually wasn't sure who the store owner was from the show because there are so many blondes with voluminous hair. I was like, is this Joyce? Nope, this isn't Joyce. Is it Buffy? It's definitely not Buffy.
Yeah.
It took me staring for a while to figure it out.
So yeah, I would say as a first issue, it clearly introduces the main themes, which are the tension between Buffy as a normal teenage girl versus her as this extraordinary chosen one vampire slayer. And it shows us what she can do. It tells us what she wants. It sets up her relationships with some of the main characters. So I'm objectively reluctant to say that it's bad or that it fails. That's what you want out of a first issue. So it does that. I just personally am not a fan of the franchise. And I think that its intention is to really kind of be classic Buffy. And it doesn't seem to be putting any kind of new spin on it. So yeah.
Gotcha.
I tried.
Hey, that's all we can ask. And I'm sure that Danny will be elated based on this review. Let's...
I hope so.
Danny, let us know what you thought, please. Nick, how you been? How have comics been? What have you been reading?
As has already been pointed out, our weather is pretty fucking insane. Just snow, like it's nobody's business, and black ice here and there, and I mean that's still not even the worst, which is that I've rediscovered my love for the video game Into the Breach, and so all bets are off at this point. It's
You're hibernating for the winter, is what you're saying.
Yeah, oh man, it's so bad. If you ever wanted a grid-based puzzle strategy turn-based game that surrounds a pixel art aesthetic and is basically Pacific Rim, yeah, it's good. In terms of what I've read, the most recent thing that I read was Polar, which is written and drawn by Victor Santos. Santos is a Spanish comic book creator, perhaps best known in America outside of Polar. And it's follow-up volumes for drawing volumes 2 through 4 of The Mice Templar, as well as the series Violent Love for Image Comics.
Okay.
And I decided to read this because I wanted to be that guy. The guy who gets to go around and proudly insist to people that he's not going to watch the titular film until he gets around to reading the book. But he doesn't, but he just spends forever getting around to reading the book, so no one can ever discuss the film around him. And you're just like, I'm still reading the book. So basically, it's just sadism.
So you're great to be around, is what you're saying.
I'm a real fun at a party, real party loving guy. Come talk to me, please. I'm alone. So the series began in 2012 as a webcomic, and actually it originally lacked dialogue and speech bubbles. Santos didn't want to slow down the comic's creation with translation efforts, and he also admitted he didn't feel comfortable writing in English. That makes two of us. Just kidding. I'm sure he has a better grip on it than I do. Santo also embraced the webcomic format in order to actually utilize a horizontal/widescreen layout for pages, which occasionally you do see in like Big Two Comics. I know Action Comics a few years ago did like a horizontal issue, and they're like, oh my fucking god, it's horizontal, and they were like losing their shit over it. Well, this whole thing is based around that. It also allowed for him to have a streamlined way to sort of gauge fan reaction and correct mistakes, because it's all, on the internet and digital, and he has full control over everything, so it's kind of interesting. It was actually his editors at Dark Horse that basically told him, look, if we're going to actually publish this for you, it's going to be way more commercially viable if it has language in it. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It's really interesting to read the book just imagining that you strip away all of the language, and it's really fascinating because there are certain points where you're like, he's absolutely right. Like, this 16-page fight scene definitely does not need dialogue. But there are other moments, boy, where you're looking at someone reacting to another person on the page before, and they're talking to them on the phone, and you're not really certain who they're talking to. And I mean, you wouldn't be certain if there wasn't for the fact that there's dialogue. So it's interesting in the respect that there are certain pages where it's like, I don't even know how he was going to try to make this clear without dialogue. Mm-hmm. It's pretty high concept fare. Old, aged, retired assassin/hitman decides that he's going to retire to the comforts of a snowy cabin in the woods, but things can only look like the nightmare dreamscape of a Thomas Kincaid painting for so long before a heavily armored assault team shows up because they want you dead. Oh, minor spoilers, they're your ex-employer. It's heavily stylized. It's only a 3-color palette book: black, white, and orange. And it reminds me a lot of Jim Steranko meets Frank Miller meets Eduardo Riso in equal parts. Both good and bad. Sometimes you have these crazy heavily inked silhouettes that are so like jagged and blocky that you're like, I don't even know what's going on. Like, what am I looking at here? Mm-hmm. But it's enjoyable. It's super actiony from what I know from the film's trailer and from what little Jordan and I talked about yesterday, just a little back and forth about the book versus the movie. The book is very different, and I don't know if it's that the movie goes into things in books 2 and 3 that just aren't in book 1, but in terms of book 1 and the movie lining up, it sounds like they are very, very different.
I see.
But it was a lot of fun. I'm eager to see what happens with the other 2 volumes. Beyond that, I'll just briefly say I finally read Livewire 1. The hype is real. It's good. It's a little slow. It's a little recap heavy if you're someone who actually sort of remembers. And, like, I don't have a fantastic memory, but, like, I remembered Harbinger Wars 2 well enough where I'm like, I get it. I remember what happened. Like, you don't need to pound it into my head this many times. This is from Vita Ayala and art by Raul Allen and Patricia Martin. And it's a little recap heavy, but I do appreciate that we're not letting Livewire off the hook for the events of Harbinger Wars 2. Like, it seems like what happened there is going to be a real focus point for this book, so we'll see what happens.
Cool. I have the first 2 issues of that. I still need to actually read it. I feel like a bum that I haven't sat down. Like, I'm way behind on everything, but I was really looking forward to Livewire, so I need to actually do that. That's what I'm going to do today. Let's catch up on all my books, I guess. Kate, how are you been? How have comic books been?
I'm good. We've been moving, and Nick already mentioned the awful weather that we're having, as well as partially moving in that. I'm also going to head out and play D&D at a bar later after we're finished recording, so God. I get to drive in this. I also read Buffy issue 1, and I've already commented a little bit on that with Tia. I also read Deep Roots issues 1 through 3. This is from Dan Waters and Val Rodriguez. It's from Vault Comics, and I've mentioned this before. This time I looked it up, and trade 1 is coming out on Wednesday.
Oh, good.
I'm right this time. I
Good.
checked. I enjoyed this. This is really what I was hoping it would be. It's basically nature is fighting back against the destruction of the environment and pollution and such. And there's parts of it that kind of feel like a natural disaster movie with like the involvement of the government organization and some of the dialogue with that, and somebody breaking the rules to investigate and such. And then the plant forms, these like humanoid soldiers, are kind of funny. I don't know if they're supposed to be, but
I don't think so. I think they're supposed to be more menacing.
yeah, they are menacing. That's true, but they can talk, and I guess the plants picked up human aggression to fight back against the humans in multiple different ways, and part of it was through your dinner vegetables. So there's one plant soldier that is in an interrogation, and it's talking to this person, but it's speaking in phrases that you would hear from like a mother trying to get her child to eat his vegetables. So I enjoyed this scene a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was supposed to be like funny, but on the whole, those guys are supposed to be very menacing and scary. I think.
Yeah, there's also like this big giant like sentinel armored plant guy, walking around, and his scenes are kind of more abstract. It's really interesting. I don't think that he's found like the human world yet. He's in this kind of like, it made me think of the Green from oh boy, Animal Man?
Swamp Thing?
Swamp Thing, yeah, same mythology. Yeah, so I'm excited to finish this. I'm excited that Trade 1 is coming out.
Yeah, I was going to do a full reread after the last issue came out, so I'll be on board with you as well to actually finish this.
Yeah.
It's for me, I read a handful of books, but the one I want to talk about is X-Force number 1. This is by Ed Brisson and Dylan Burnett. This is a dark little book, as X-Force books tend to be. Like it seems like Marvel's going back to this idea of we need a Black Ops team, and it's got to be Domino, Cannonball, and a handful of other people. And this book is all over the place because this team was put together to hunt down young Cable, who I'm calling Baby Boy Cable, because he killed his self. He killed himself, his old self from the present. He came from the past to the future, but it's really hard to explain. And that's not just me stumbling. I literally don't know how to say that, because young Cable came to the present day X-Men world where old Cable was helping the current X-Men fight off something, and then young Cable killed old Cable, who's been living in the future for a really long time. You ever had yourself come back to kill you? Because that's what this book is kind of premised or based on. It's really weird. I really liked how dark this book was. I think Ed Brisson did a good job of capturing some of the voices of all the characters. The enemy in this book is young Cable himself, but he's been working with people in Eastern Europe from this fake little war-torn country, and so the X-Force team has to go hunt down these guys who are using these very advanced weapons from the future, as well as trying to find young Cable. It's a pretty solid first issue. Number 2 comes out this week, and I'm on board for at least the first arc. I just can't believe that we're running with this storyline that young Cable came back from the future after his old self to kill his old self, but his old self must have known this was coming. I don't know. X-Men, man. It's fucking X-Men. That's all I can say. It's wild. Well, let's talk about comics we're excited for really quick. The comic books are dropping on January 30th, 2019. What are you all excited for? Let's start with you, Tia.
I know you guys know I don't read a lot of DC comics, although I'm trying to read more DC comics, and I was actually like so sold on the cover for Mysteries of Love in Space #1 that like I don't even care that I don't know who some of this people are. It's an anthology of like love romance stories, and I don't know who all the
I'm looking at the cover right now.
yeah, it's amazing. I don't know who all the stories are about, but like I don't care because it just looks like so much fun. And I like flipped through it a little bit because I can, and it looks really funny. Like the cover looks like it actually is selling it correctly, which is like cute, dumb, funny romance stories about these DC characters. So I'm not mad at it. And also it looks like every creator who's literally ever worked for DC is involved in it somehow. So like, cool. It's a party.
Yeah. The cover is Dark Side with like roses.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sure. Count me in, I guess, to try it as well.
Well, and it's like, and Lois is like going off with him, and Superman's like, oh man. It's just so funny.
Oh man, that's great. Kate, what are you excited for this week?
I'm excited for Life is Strange number 3. I know that Brian's already talked a lot about this, so I'll be pretty brief. It's by Emma Viacelli and Claudia Lenardi, and it's from Titan Comics. And the game that this is based off of was wonderful and heartfelt, and issue 1 of this was the same. It's everything that I wanted, so I'm just excited for more of it.
Awesome. Nick, what are you excited for this week?
Well, it would have to be James Bond 007 number 3. It was actually originally going to be the new Bloodshot series number 3, but I won't get into that right now. That series is not good. But boy, hot damn, this book is a lot of fun. It's technically a carryover from the original run that Warren Ellis and Jason Masters kicked off a few years back over at Dynamite. Ben Percy, Andy Diggle, Alice Scott all did subsequent series as well, but they started it, and while this series is kind of a clean break from those, it does retain the look, aesthetic, and characters of the that were conceived under Ellis's run. So that still is retained, and that's pretty much it. We've got a new Odd Job people. He's younger, he's faster than the original, and in this storyline, the original Odd Job was an active agent about 30 years ago, so it's definitely not the same Odd Job, but this guy's got the exact same moveset, to borrow from video game fighting genre lingo.
Is this the guy that throws the hat? I feel like we talked about this.
This is the guy who
before.
throws the bowler. It's exactly him. Yes,
good.
Exactly. But this is, like I said, it's a younger, fitter, sexier, faster one. Still has the hat, though. The hat's still there. Don't worry.
Perfect.
If you were worried about whether or not you were going to cheat in GoldenEye for the Nintendo 64, it's still a possibility. And he nearly beats James Bond's ass the first time that he meet. It's something that he, as well as most of James's coworkers who witness it, are keen to remind James of pretty much every time they see him. Whenever he goes out on missions, they're all like, dude, he's gonna fucking kill you.
Oh my god, I feel like I really need to check this book out. This sounds like a lot of fun.
It's got a really keen sense of humor to it without being like, like too much, like where like Die Another Day and stuff like that got like way too fucking jokey and punny. It doesn't get there, okay? But the two keep running into each other in the field because they're both going after the same Russian handcuffed to a roller suitcase. Like, find your own Russian handcuffed to a roller suitcase. Like, this is the gig economy. There's got to be another person out there on Fiverr who's willing to handcuff themselves to a suitcase. It's not tough. And of course, Oddjob wants him alive. James Bond wants him dead. Both of them are like, should we work together? Should we not work together? Like, we'll work together for a bit, but then I'm gonna like turn on you and steal your boat and blow you up and shoot you in the face. And we're both gonna still survive and like look longingly at each other as one of us, drives off into the sunset or whatever. Like, this is fun. Like, this is a lot of fun, but it doesn't get goofy.
Awesome.
Pull quote, I suppose.
Cool.
And it's Mark Lamming art, which Mark Lamming, really underrated, great artist, fantastic inks.
Cool. Paul, what about you? What are you excited for this week?
Let's see. Well, we're recording on Sunday, the 27th of January. So, of course, tonight is the annual Royal Rumble. I'll be watching that this evening. So,
I'm in like two
win,
online
Come
bets
on,
about
you gotta
this.
have a prediction. Let's hear it.
I'm going to go with the dark horse pick. Jeff Hardy's going to win. We'll see if I'm proven right.
Brother Nero.
Brother Nero is going to win, and then Becky Lynch obviously is going to win the women's Rumble. That seems obvious.
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress. So speaking of that, this week sees the release of WWE Forever #1. This is a one-shot sort of anthology that Boom Studios is putting out. They published the WWE ongoing series, but this is a one-shot, a bunch of different creators doing stories about professional wrestling legends, and the descriptions of these stories sound so funny that I can't resist picking this up. Apparently there's a story about Bobby the Brain Heenan kidnapping the British Bulldog's dog Matilda. That would be fun. And then,
Okay.
And then there's one story that features a showdown between Razor Ramon and the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, inside of a jewelry store. So, got to find out what happens with that stuff. I just love this sort of like the dumb in kayfabe storytelling they do with these, where it's like they're loosely based on real, quote unquote, real wrestling storylines, but they just double down on the absurdity of them. So it's hard not to enjoy pro wrestling while laughing at it at the same time for being stupid. And I kind of like it when they do this in this book. So should be a fun one.
Does it involve Scotty Too Hottie?
Unfortunately, no. I don't think Scotty Too Hottie is going to be involved, nor Grandmaster Sexay will be there either. So.
Come on.
I'm excited for Royal Rumble too. I just want to say that, but I'm excited for this week, Age of X-Men Alpha #1, because of course it's an X-Men book. Coming off of pages of issue number 10, I have not read the Cyclops on Cyclops annual yet, but I look forward to reading that today, probably again. But this is Zach Thompson and Lonnie Nadler with Ramon Rosanas on art. This is an obvious pick for me just because I'm on board for these writers. Like Zach Thompson and Lonnie Nadler truly proved themselves on Come Into Me, so I will pretty much read anything they are putting out. I think Rosanna's art looks phenomenal from the preview images that I've seen, so I'm very excited about that. But this is the beginning of the weird thing that left off at the end of Uncanny X-Men #10, which, big, huge, fat spoilers I won't go into, but we're in a new age of something, I guess. I'm really happy that we're done with this race to issue number 10, which was Uncanny X-Men coming out every single week for 10 weeks straight. That was kind of a lot. I know that some people enjoyed it. I felt like I was very overwhelmed. But yeah, I'm guessing that this issue is just going to be a series of throwbacks to Age of X, Age of Apocalypse, Age of all the different ages that X-Men have had. Well as a couple of weird twists on things. I know the way that number 10 left off was a big, huge, like, what the fuck are we going to do next? Which is classic X-Men. But I'm hoping that Nadler and Thompson give us a brief glimpse into what we can expect to see in Uncanny and moving forward. Because sometimes these one-off issues will just do like a side story about like a chipmunk that was in the backstory or the back of a panel on page 4 of issue number 6. And they're like, remember when that happened? You're like, what the fuck, that happened? And then they'll do an entire 32 pages on it somehow and charge me $5. So I'm hoping that we actually get a preview as to what's to come in Uncanny X-Men, which I believe is coming out in a month. And yeah, so that's the beginning of this. Or I'm totally wrong and this isn't a one-shot, but I'm pretty sure it's a one-shot. The one other thing I will say is I'm a huge fan of Age of X, which was a story that Mike Carey did, where we got some really fun, and I put fun 3 times in my notes, fun romance bits with Rogue and Magneto, which was both weird and odd because he's very old, and she's like supposed to be her late 20s, early 30s, and it just was a little strange. And yet, I totally could ship it. I could be into it because the way that it was written was really well done. Plus, Age of X also included a very deep romance between X-23 and Hellion, which I was 100% on board for. So I'm really interested to see what this Age of X-Man whole thing that's happening is going to be, despite the annoyance that I had with the 10-issue rush that came out. So that's pretty much me. It's classic. It's classic. 5 years running, still picking X-Men books, folks.
It's never change, Mike. Never change.
Thanks. As I said at the top of the episode, this is our annual episode. This is an episode that marks another year passing for I Read Comic Books, and quite honestly, the fact that we are at annual number 4 is kind of fucking insane to me. I can't imagine a lot of people have like 5 years worth of a thing that they could say they did consistently for 5 years straight once a week. I don't know. Everyone gets out of bed every morning, so maybe that counts. But this show is a little bit different maybe than that. I don't know. I'm not trying to be mean to anybody. I'm just saying, like, I can't believe we're at 5 years because I've done some things in my life that have lasted for a long time. Like, I used to run the site that this podcast was on called Destroy the Cyborg. Ran that for about 7 years, and it kind of tapered off as we migrated more things into this show. Here we are at 5 years, very close to 200 episodes. I mean, we're doing a 200th episode something. It's going to be a big deal. We've got like 13 weeks, 12 weeks from today or whatever. It's going to be something. I'm still working on the details, but I want to talk about what we've done the last year. It's been a pretty big year as far as I Read Comic Books is concerned. We did so many things that we hadn't done in the previous years, including going to conventions, printing a zine, doing all sorts of things. What did you guys enjoy the most out of the last year? I've got a million things that I really enjoyed. This is like a thing that I do all the time. I want to know what you guys thought. Like, what was your big highlights from 2018 between the last annual and now?
I mean, Emerald City Comic Con was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, that was pretty dope.
I feel like chronologically, maybe that's a good place to start.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Paul, Xander, Kara, Tia, and I all went to Emerald City, which is a whole riot and a half. We did the damn thing. I mean, we went to Biscuit Bitch. That was fantastic.
I just want to say, for everyone who can't see the notes for the show, in Mike's notes here, there's actually, it just says Biscuit Bitch ! And so, like, in my mind, I read it like, Biscuit Bitch! Which I think should just be a rallying cry. Whenever we need to get, like, pumped up, someone could just scream, Biscuit Bitch!
And everybody responds, Bitch! Yeah, I mean, we did a bunch of stuff. We were at the con 4 days. We went to the bar con like every day, including Sunday. We hung out with some creators. We got to sit at a table with Jaime Hernandez for a little while. That was pretty cool. I mean, Paul, I feel like you were the most jazzed person at a certain point during the con.
Well, there are a lot of things to unpack about the con. This was kind of like one of the first big cons I went to. It was an endeavor to travel, across the country to go. And It was nice because it actually was between the Emerald City and the getaway that we did in September. I actually got to meet all of the people on the podcast in person for the first time. So it's kind of nice to, actually meet everyone I've been talking to for a while. So meeting Kara and Tia in Seattle was fantastic. And I'm glad we had a group there because those type of conventions, those type of crowds can be very overwhelming to me. So having good friends there to do it with was perfect. But yes, Jaime Hernandez being at the con was one of the main reasons I decided to plunk down the money and go. So, I remember we were walking past the Fantagraphics booth, and he just happened to be sitting there signing stuff. So me and Xander, Mike, we all stopped and got our stuff signed. We got my picture with him. I got to thank him for writing the Love Bunglers, so that made the whole trip worth it, on top of all the other fun stuff we did.
Yeah, that was like a surreal moment because it was so strange. Where I remember we walked up to his booth, or we walked up to the Fantagraphics booth, and there was just like 2 or 3 other people there, and I think you said to me, how is there not a line around the corner for this booth? I mean, and I'm sure he must have been sitting there for a while just signing things, but yeah, it was so cool. He was such a chilled out dude who was just like, this is my comic. Like, that seemed to be his mentality, just, this is my comic. I made this. That's it.
Yeah, and what's funny is that, he had another booth set up where he was doing, sketches, and on the artist alley, everyone's got their big banners with their name and their artwork on it, and their tables all filled with, books to sell, and it's literally just him with a little paper sign that says Jaime Hernandez, nothing else. Just him and a sketchbook and a little sign that says Jaime Hernandez. So I plunked down my $60 to get a sketch from him, which was great because I ended up chatting with Ben Saunders, who we interviewed on the show. I ended up chatting with him while I was waiting in line, so that was kind of fun to make that connection. Me and Ben were talking about Jack Kirby, and all of a sudden, Jaime stops what his sketch he was doing and just says, "Are you guys talking about Jack Kirby?" And that was such like a wonderful moment where everything I love about comics kind of like came together in that beautiful exchange.
That's so cool. So cool. I mean, I was absolutely worth going and hanging out. I said it on the show last week, you get to hang out with some of the best dressed folks at comic conventions.
Yes.
I mean, with Tia and Kara going out every night in like top tier regalia, like ready to go out and dressed to impress. It's always fantastic. I mean, and not to mention, we'd sit down at the bar, Tia and Kara would just disappear, and then they'd come back and be like, "Here, we need to introduce you to our producer, and these are all the people that we make this podcast with." And it was like nonstop, which was amazing. Like, I don't know how Tia and Kara, you guys know all of these people, but you guys just make friends, and it is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, I don't know how that happens either, because I'm not like a friendly, outgoing, sociable person at all.
Right, sure, whatever. Okay.
And also, like, so our office where I work it's in the fashion district, and there's a lot of sample sales all the time, and so I buy these like outrageous dresses for like $20, and I just have a closet full of these clothes that I will never wear because I wear like athleisure all the time, basically.
Sure,
I'm that person,
right?
And so if I'm gonna be at a place where there's like people around who aren't lifting weights, it's like, yes, I could finally break into my closet of sparkle party dresses that I bought for $20 for no reason.
And I mean, there was like every night we were out, it was great. You guys were always dressed to the nines, which is fantastic. And meanwhile, I'm showing up in just like the hoodie and jeans that I wore to the con because I'm a bum.
Dudes can do that.
I guess, yeah, we could get by with that. But the other stuff we did when we were in Seattle, we went to some weird diner, like the weirdest, greased. It was called Ludi's. It was like the greasiest diner ever. And like people were drinking at like 9 in the morning because it's one of those bars that doesn't close because they're open for third shift workers, which was a whole experience I'd never actually seen in real life before. That was the whole thing.
And
it was pretty fantastic, yeah, because we just the woman's taking us to our table in the back. We just keep walking further and further back of the restaurant, and all of a sudden there's a bar at the back of this diner, and it kind of blew my mind. I'm like, oh, this is a bar I would actually hang out at. That's the kind of place I like. So
right.
We were like shoved up against the jukebox, and so one of those third shift dudes came over to play some songs, and I had to sort of be displaced so that he could reach the jukebox, so I made him play me a song.
Right. Back in Black by AC/DC. Let's make sure we name the song, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that went without saying, but yes.
Yeah. I mean, and we interviewed some people at the con, which was really fun. We talked to like Farrell Dalrymple. We talked to Tess Stone. We talked to
Kelly Fitzpatrick and
Kelly
Archie.
Fitzpatrick and her wonderful little dog, who she brought everywhere. Like, I think when we were at Biscuit Bitch, she showed up and she had her dog with her, which was so cool.
Well, I mean, look, he's people. Whatever. Everyone can deal.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Emerald City was great. I mean, I think based off of that experience, we were like, we have to do a con again. And in order to get people to actually, get the whole crew going, this year we're going to go to C2E2 as like the whole podcast, because it's close for most of the people in Michigan. It's relatively easy for Karatia and I to get to, and it's going to be a whole thing. I'm pretty sure all of us are going to be there.
Side note, I'm actually going to die because the weekend before C2E2, I'm going to be at Emerald City Comic Con, and the weekend after, I have to go to my brother's wedding. So I'm going to go New York, Seattle, New York, Chicago, New York, Baltimore in a span of 3 weeks.
So thoughts and prayers for Tia in advance.
If you see me at C2E2 and you have an iced coffee to hand me, I'm just saying you would be my favorite person.
I will step up my fashion and iced coffee game.
Kara and I will be happy to dress you, Kate.
And if anybody's going to C2E2, you have to let us know. We will gladly meet up and hang out with you guys at BarCon, or maybe during the con. That would be super cool. I've got a quadrillion number of stickers and pins that I'm willing to hand out to give to people because there were some Black Friday deals and I spent some money. So, like this year we did like a getaway. We did some interviews. What are some other things? I don't want to necessarily dominate the discussion here.
Our Goodreads group exploded. We are, let's see, how many people do we have? 494 people.
As of today, yeah.
Which is amazing. Like, I'm pretty sure... Do you remember when we hit 300 like 2 months ago, and now we're almost at 500?
Yeah, we were like going to do a giveaway to be like, we hit 300. Like, okay, like that was a whole thing, and I
bigger
mean,
giveaway.
It's not like every person on the group is necessarily participating, but there is a large number of people participating, and I could say that because I'm subscribed to everything, like to get notifications for it, and at this point, I really need to turn it off because we are getting comments all the time. It's so cool. Like, we got an email from Danny, best guy in the world, thanking us for the community that we created on Goodreads. Like, and I've heard nothing but positive things from people that have joined it. It's such a warming feeling, and I just want to thank Kait for Kate Scotchless, sorry, Kate, for driving the thing and keeping it alive, because she's done a miraculous job at making the Goodreads group actually a thing that people want to keep coming back to and talking with us.
Yeah, and we've got people from all over the world there. I mean, we have international people chiming in on the introduce yourself thread. Like, it seems like every couple of days. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, great, you're from Germany. Give me a German comic that I can read in English, please. So that's a ton of fun. And then we have our the 2019 Goodreads reading challenge going up soon, and it's going to be so much bigger than last year because there are way more people chiming in. So I don't know if we're going to like limit it and then have an extended list. I have no idea.
We'll figure it out. That's going to be a whole thing. I mean, the most impressive thing that happened this year was we got Nick to start chiming in, and it's been a whole thing. And I only say that
you're welcome, I guess.
Your responses are very good, is what I mean. They're long. They're very informative, and I know people appreciate them because whenever you respond, you always get like 4 or 5 other people chiming in to respond back to you. I think that's a sign. You need to keep contributing.
Okay. I mean, that's your opinion, but...
I know. I'm bad at it too, Nick. I think I have...
No.
Yeah.
I did like when that Jeff guy was like, oh, you have any advice for Valiant? And then I just text dumped on him like crazy. Like 9 paragraphs. And he's like, wow, thanks. And I was like, I don't know if this is sarcasm, because if I were you, I might be like, wow, I just feel buried. But he seemed very appreciative, and it's always good to see, that sort of reaction from people that are, just as excited as you are, and, just happy to not have someone greet them on a message board with, why don't you Google it?
I definitely think like a handful of the users on there are kind of carrying a lot of our group sometimes when the rest of us aren't chiming in for a week or so. So shout out to all of those guys. You guys are amazing.
Yeah, the Goodreads group is something that it's reminded me to keep going and using Goodreads, despite the toughness of it. I'll use that word instead of another word, but it has
the unintuitive
its
user interface.
It is awful.
I didn't say it.
I said it.
It needs a little work.
Sure. I mean, it's a big site. It's a thing that's like, they wanted to use groups, and groups I think work really well on Goodreads because you can follow people and you can see updates and people can post all sorts of things. But Goodreads I don't think is optimized for being like a discussion forum so much as it's optimized for just tracking your books, and then there's also a discussion forum on there. And I don't know if there's a better solution, because I'm hesitant to create like any other kind of group. Like, do we want a Discord or a Slack or something?
I mean, it perfectly embraces the stereotype of the antisocial reader, but
yeah, sure. I mean, Kate gave me some notes since she's not on the episode this week. And she said she was really impressed by the number of people who finished the recommended reading challenge that we had this year, which is definitely worth mentioning because I think in 2017 we only had like 2 people complete it. This year I think we had 5 or 6. Which is insane. Like, even some people coming in literally in the last week of December saying, I'm dropping everything that I'm doing. I'm only reading books for this reading challenge just so I can get in on, under the last day of the year, which was really cool. I was impressed. I know that I didn't finish it. I'm part of the group. And I don't know if we actually had anyone from the actual podcast finish the reading challenge, but I know we all tried. I think I got halfway through it or something.
We should do something like at the library where you get a prize if you finish the reading challenge, or you get entered to win a prize or something, since we have all these stickers and pins and things hanging around.
I'm all for that. We don't have a lot of pins, but I have a ton of stickers. All the cool Justice League stickers that I've been slowly giving out to people, which is my favorite sticker design ever, that I totally just ripped off the Justice Society of America logo. But you know what? It's parody. It's totally fine. Yeah. Kate also said we read a lot more diverse books this year and had some really awesome discussions, and I will say that's true. I think every month we had at least like 20 plus comments on the Book of the Month challenge, and then we recorded every other month, which is a lot of fun. And we did a lot of notable branching out, I think, as not only the podcast, but like as a Goodreads group in general, getting people to try things that are a little bit off the cuff. We weren't just reading superhero books, I think, which is a kind of a thing that we did in 2017. In 2018, we moved into a more diverse reading area, which is always good, because everyone's reading superhero books anyways. You should be using like this is the mentality I think we're coming at it, is like we should be reading more diverse stuff as part of a group to discuss it more, because we want more people to read that stuff in general, because everyone knows Superman, Batman, X-Men, all that stuff, but not everyone knows maybe about Hilda and the Troll or whatever that book was called. But or some manga and things like that. I'm really glad that we had people actively excited to read these books that maybe were a little bit off their radar.
Right.
My pick for 2019 was a non-superhero book.
I know. I mean, I'm just saying, like, I think 2017 we had more superhero books winning the book of the month, month challenge.
Yeah, no, we
and
had to shake that up for sure.
And we say exactly. So, yeah. I'm again dominating everything because I just can't shut up. I'm very excited. I love this podcast more than you guys know.
Well, yeah, Mike, I was going to say, like, that's something to think about. I remember when we first started doing the show, and it was literally you and me in your basement talking to Nick. And that was it. Yeah. And then the fact here we are, 4 years later, and we have such a big, diverse group of contributors, big, diverse group of fans. We've been able to do things like the zine. That shows the growth, and I think that shows not only your love of the podcast, but everyone that does it.
Totally.
The show actually meant a lot to me to be involved with it, and something I'm really proud to say I'm a part of. So,
oh, thanks.
No, same. It definitely, and it's nice that there are things that we do that kind of hit everyone's ability to contribute. Like, I feel guilty sometimes that I'm not contributing more to the zine or to the Goodreads group, but like, I tried to put together This Is Not an Interview last year. Well,
I mean, don't say try, because you absolutely fucking did, and it was awesome. Like, you definitely did the show multiple times.
Oh my god. There was a point at which we were like, we're going to do this every other month, and then a bunch of people were like, I want to be on it, and I was like, okay, I guess we're going to do it every month. And then look, you guys, like, I don't say this disparagingly, it just is a fact, but like trying to coordinate schedules with creators is like herding cats if all the cats had unmedicated ADHD and there was just shiny stuff everywhere. Like, it's really hard. Everyone's really busy. So in the end, it ended up being only 6 episodes, which was every other month, I guess.
I mean, we still hit the goal, kind of, the original goal.
And oh god, the audio, like, I'm surprised that Xander didn't vibrate to the sun. I think he did a few times. It was so hard to get good audio.
I know. Well, that's the thing. It's tough with interviews, especially if you can't get the person to actually be there in person. I think the thing that worked really well about our Emerald City interviews was that we actually got to sit down with the person, or stand with them in the con in some cases, and put a microphone in their face and get them to speak. Versus over Skype, there's very little we can do to control the situation, which is a bummer.
There was an in-person one too, though, and there was, I guess the audio wasn't so bad, but there was a lot of background noise.
Yeah.
New York street, like ambulances going by every 5 seconds.
Right.
But yeah, it was fun to talk about death with people, which is apparently what I do.
Somehow it's always going to circle back to death. I mean, that's all right, I guess.
Death and broing out with bros, and also wedding planning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really did like the Natasha Altarisi episode a lot.
Are you guys following her cookie Twitter that she has now at Lemon Opossum?
No, I saw she posted something about that a while ago, because I follow her Patreon stuff, and she was pushing that for a little bit. I totally lost radar on that.
Oh my god, she's like gonna be, I mean, I'm sorry to lose her as an artist. I know she's had a lot of health issues, and she's probably not going to do a lot of drawing anymore, but she's still writing.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, I'm glad she's like funneling some of her artistic energy into these beautiful cookies and baking projects, because they're just amazing.
That's a little bit less strenuous on your hands, I'm guessing.
And then you get to eat cookies.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, to completely change topics, I will just say, I did promise last week on the show, and Kara called me out on this in our internal chat that we have, that we were going to talk about astrology in Hogwarts houses. Did anyone actually sit and think about that? Because I know very little about astrology. Like,
and I know even less about Harry Potter. sort of can't. So
Wait. So are you saying that you know more about astrology, though?
maybe, because at least I know what astrology is.
Oh, okay.
I literally know nothing about Harry Potter. So yeah.
Well, I only asked because I didn't know that Libras were like considered slutty, and that's what I am, but I don't think I'm that slutty. So like, I don't know. Are you supposed to check all the boxes for your horoscope sign?
You're supposed to sit there and think about all of them until your brain just mentally decides that you fit them.
I mean, look.
Okay, you guys are going to start seeing a lot more deep V cuts.
But for real, though, I am such a cliche Scorpio that it actually is like, sometimes I feel like a parody of myself. I don't know.
What is, okay, for someone, it sounds like none of us know what that really means. What is a cliche Scorpio? Because, like, I don't want to make assumptions about anything.
Scorpios are stereotypically very intense, vindictive, also sometimes kind of slutty, but like in a scary way. And
What is
like
scary
they're
slutty?
very dramatic and intense and passionate, and they will also fuck you up. Like Cersei is a Scorpio.
Wow. Okay. That's all right. That just scary slutty just tickles my brain in such a way.
It's true,
Kara,
though.
I will say, I just want to apologize in advance that I didn't do enough research on this because I just don't know enough about that, where to go to actually find legit information about astrology types. So you can hold it against me, and we can talk about it the next time you're on the show. But I mean, that was the big thing I thought I was going to talk about this week. But we were going to kind of talk about some other things, I guess. I had some thoughts about, like, we kind of did a second show, which is, this is not an interview, so we kind of already talked about. Danny sent us an email, and I mentioned it earlier. That was honestly the most heartfelt thing I read in a long time, and it really reminded me that we're doing a really fun, cool show that people enjoy, that means a lot to them. I never thought that when we started this show that we would get to like that status, but Danny sent us this email, and oh my goodness, what a nice thing. I cannot express just how good that made me feel, and like really validated what we're doing with this show. I sent it along to everybody else because it was very, very nice. I hope you guys all took it the same way that I did, because oh my goodness, I think this show would not be what it is if it wasn't for the wonderful people like Danny and the dozens of other people that I know we've talked to and had like longer conversations with, who give us a real reason to keep coming back to make the show. Like, we'll talk to somebody on Twitter, and that's like enough fuel to get us into the show, to get us back into like the rhythm. Sometimes I feel a little bit out of it with the show, like, fuck, this is a lot. This show is like really heavy, and then I get like one response on Twitter, or I get an email, or somebody just says the right thing, and I'm just like, fuck, what am I talking about? It reminds me that we're doing a really, really rich, amazing show. And I was wrong. Like, I don't know why I would ever doubt myself, because we're doing something that's great here.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that part of the thing that comics needs is to expand and grow its audience. And for a lot of people who don't live near comic shops or who don't have a community of comic book people, it's really hard to bring them into the community and make them feel like they're part of it. And so I like to think that is what the podcast can foster for people who maybe want to be more involved but don't have the access.
Right. And it's a nice alternative to, if all you have to do is scroll through comics Twitter to see that comics can be very divisive, and there's a lot of hostility among fandom,
Yeah, this idea, I don't
mute that shit.
Nick.
Just like curate that shit away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's, and not to get too like hippy dippy or out there, but the fact that, like I said, the show has evolved from Mike's basement to what it is now, the fact that we have people reaching out and saying wonderful things about it and listening to the show every week, and the fact that we made this zine that people are responding to and contributing to, it's a nice reminder that if you do put positive creative energy out into the universe, it will come back to you. You'll be repaid for that. And I think this show is a positive example of that being true.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's all thanks to Mike.
Mike and
Putting it
Sandra
together
are
and for
like,
keeping us on top of it.
I mean, yeah. I thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to do something with my English degree, analyzing reading material of some kind. I feel like I'm actually using what I was trained to do when I look at a book, and I can actually, see all the subplots and all the references to other material and such.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same. Like my art history degree is just, languishing, and then I have to make some notes about comic books, and half the time I forget to talk about the plot. I feel like me and Kait should maybe combine our powers, because I'm like, oh yeah, plot happens, but can we talk about this one panel for 10 years?
yeah. I mean, and that kind of leads into another thing I wanted to mention, at least, was we did some interview episodes this year, which were in 2018 we did a lot of interview episodes, I should say, and they all kind of they came together in such a weird way, because I feel like as soon as I schedule one interview episode, I get an email from 3 more people that want to be on the show. And it's like when it rains, it pours. And this year, I know we've already got.
Who did we say no to, Mike?
Don't
name names. Names.
No, we didn't say no to anybody, and that was the thing. I wanted to say yes to everybody because they were all good episodes. All the people that came on the show were fantastic. We had Vita and Emily on earlier in the year, and then later we had Pat Shannon, we had Emily as well. We had Ben Saunders on, and this year, and Hope Nicholson. We had all these people, and they came in pairs in weird ways. And we're doing the same thing this year. We've got one interview episode followed by another interview episode coming up, which is going to be really cool. The creators from Spencer and Locke are going to be on. We've got a friend of the show, Scott McGovern, who's going to come on and talk about distribution models. We've also got. Oh boy, I don't have it off the top of my head.
We've got some. This is not an interview that'll happen this year.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna try to continue that show, and it's gonna be irregular, but we've got a lot of really cool shit. It makes us feel like not only are we doing a really good show, but we're doing a show that is legitimate, that people are reaching out to us to be on, not the other way around. People have sent me emails to say, "Hey, can I come on your show and talk about this thing?" Sometimes it's promotional, sometimes it's not, but it's been fantastic. I don't know, we've done some fucking cool stuff, and I can't even believe it. 5 years ago, I wouldn't think that we'd be doing this kind of thing, and I wouldn't be putting the stress in my head to say, oh my god, how are we going to record this interview? It's going to sound like shit, and then it ends up being very, very good. And I'm I don't know why I worried about it at all. A lot of that is thankful it's on you guys, not me, where you guys actually come with the legit questions and know how to talk to somebody, whereas I just kind of go, yeah, and it's really cool when in your comic you did a thing, and wow.
Mike,
do you have a response to
golden
me?
retriever.
I mean, that's how it is sometimes. I feel like every interview that we've had, I ramp up and I get really excited, and then I kind of go, oh wait, no, this is a person, and you can just talk to them like you do the rest of the people on the show, and they usually react well, and that's how you end up with fantastic little ending bits like we did with the Pat Shand episode, where the guy sounded like he was going to fall over in his chair because of some of the goofy shit we were talking about with air fried wings, and I don't know. It's fantastic. I very fond memories from the last year of doing stuff like that.
I think your enthusiasm is a really important part of the show, Mike.
Good. Good, because it leaves me exhausted every single week. I have to go lay down after every episode that we record.
You're using your energy for good.
It's true.
Yeah,
good,
exactly.
Good.
You're Gryffindor.
Let's
wrap it back around.
Boy, here we go.
I am clearly a Hufflepuff. It is I fucking sit right in the middle of all tests and quizzes I take on the internet. I'm just a Hufflepuff, which is why I love this movie/Broadway show called Puffs the Play, and it's all about why being Hufflepuff is pretty great. And I didn't realize how much that movie meant to me that show meant to me until I watched it for the 5th time, and I was like, oh, this is really good, and it makes me feel good. So if you haven't seen it, you should all check it out. It's on iTunes and Amazon and all that stuff. It's really great.
I feel like Hufflepuff Slytherin friendships are very important, so I will defend your Hufflepuffness.
There's these big lines. We're going into a Harry Potter thing now. Sorry. There's these big lines. Yeah, see you, Paul.
Bye.
No, there's these big lines drawn in the Harry Potter universe between the houses, and I never got that because it's could you imagine being around 50 of yourself? Wouldn't you just fucking hate that? The reason I have friends that are different from me is because I don't I'm okay, but other people are way better than me. Like, or at least they bring something different to the table and not going to sit and think about the same 4 things. Like, I'm glad that none of you read X-Men, because otherwise I'd go fucking insane. I already think about it enough. I don't need to, like, spend that much time talking about it. But as an example, I don't know, Harry Potter's weird like that. Separating people based on their personality traits is weird.
Yes,
that's
correct.
That's the show. Yeah. That's the show. Thanks, guys. I don't know. Nick, I feel like we haven't given you a chance to talk. How are you feeling?
I mean, I don't know what's left to cover at this point.
Which slutty astrological sign are you, Nick?
I'm I'm Aries, which I think, like, if you want to definitively debunk astrology, you would probably start with me being an Aries, because, like,
because you're not angry.
From my
slutty.
understanding of Aries is like, no, don't think about it, just action, and you're driven, and you're, you know, a person who, you know, does things without hesitation, and that's like the complete opposite. So, you know,
interesting.
Except for thinking, which I do with, except for speaking, which I do without thinking, which I guess would be the one exception. So,
checkmate, astrologist.
Yeah.
What's?
No, I think people should be sorted into their astrological sign, not born into them. Although with me it worked out, but it doesn't always.
Interesting. Kate, what did you like about 2018? I feel like I also have been, like, just elbowing you out of the conversation as well.
No, you're fine. I'm glad to have lasted the full year on the podcast and not be such a mess when I'm recording that you kicked me off.
Hey, I'm not kicking anybody off. They gotta tell me to get that they're getting the fuck out of here. Otherwise, I'm just gonna think that you're coming back every week.
Yeah. It's been great. I've really read a lot. Wider variety of things than I would have otherwise, between the Goodreads Book of the Months and the Reading Challenge, and then just going to the library and being like, I need to expand my reading list. Oh, this is a nonfiction book. I should check out some of that. And it turns out that I really like nonfiction comics, and I never would have picked it up if I didn't feel like I needed to read more for the podcast.
That's awesome.
And then working on the zine has been really great. I know that it's been like, we're still figuring out what we want to do with it, but expanding into this other medium, the print medium, I'm good at that. That's my job. I make print things. So it's been really fun to do something really creative with that and collaborate on what we put in it, and be able to use my weirdly detailed knowledge about why we should print at this trim size.
I mean, I'm glad that you knew, because I was just going to say, we'll just take it to FedEx and see what we can do.
Yeah.
So that's good. I appreciate the work you put into it, because Kate, I will say, has, like, definitely killed herself for this thing sometimes, especially when we've got stuff being thrown in literally the day before it's supposed to be released, and staying up till midnight, 1 a.m. with me to make the thing work. Like, I have to clap my hands at you, I guess, over the microphone for that.
Drink a lot of coffee at midnight for this for this podcast.
That is pretty amazing, because I remember, Mike, you, me, and Xander were sitting in our hotel room at Emerald City in Seattle.
I was super drunk. I recall this too.
It was after BarCon. Drinks were involved, where we stayed up really late, throwing around ideas like, we should start a zine, and then we just kept spitballing ideas, throwing it back and forth, how it's going to look. The fact that it actually came out, mainly thanks to Kate's efforts, is pretty amazing. They went from a drunken conversation to an actual physical thing people can buy. That's wonderful.
I mean, alcohol's a hell of a drug. No, I don't know. I think it was a combination of, like, we had a lot of really good ideas that night. I jotted down a lot of them. I still have that document somewhere of just, like, ideas that we could potentially do. And what it actually turned into was something that was just like, well, okay, what's actually doable by us? And then to hear that it wasn't just the 3 of us talking, that there was actual interest in doing it, was very exciting, that we weren't just going crazy. Because I know a lot of it was, I think at Emerald City we saw that Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men, and they're, like, pretty fantastic podcasts. They had a booth where they were hanging out and being like, this is our podcast, where they're doing some legit shit. And I was like, well, why couldn't we do that? We could also do that. We're a legit podcast. And then seeing where it went is a whole different thing. I think, like, in the end, we ended up creating something really cool. And I really enjoy all the zines. I have a stack of them just sitting on my bookshelf waiting to, like, sell or give out to people. And it's awesome to just look at sometimes. Be like, look at, we created 4 pieces of legitimate work, or 3 pieces of legitimate work, with the 4th one coming soon.
And I love that we're commissioning artists to do covers and things like that, you know, just to like stay involved and make connections and give people a chance to make some money. Like, it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, that's mostly what like some of the Patreon stuff's going towards, is just making things so that we can get other artists like involved. I don't know, try to collaborate. I still need to commission for this next issue. We'll see what we'll do for that one. But yeah, it's okay. I'm excited. I mean, that's what this show is. I think like half of it, we had this big little meeting yesterday to talk about our survey, which if anybody's curious about what stuff was answered on the survey, I'll give like a brief rundown. But we already talked about it as like a group, and a lot of the things that came out of it was just like, the conversation yesterday was like, hey, if you guys are willing to do it, we can do as much as we want with the show. Like, it's only limited by how much time people want to put into it. And I think based off the conversations I heard yesterday, it sounds like this year we might be doing a lot of really cool stuff. Like, we've got some ideas for some big things that could potentially show up on like the Patreon feed and the regular feed. I'm really excited, but I mean, we got to follow through. That's the big thing. And I'm just going to keep harping on people in my emails.
Oh my God, Mike's poor emails. They're like, they're so like scolding and pleading at the same time, but also like very gentle in your Mike way.
Thank you.
I think I want to jump in real quick and say, like, if you just listen to the show, you have no idea how much behind the scenes stuff, non-audio stuff happens between all of us that I makes me so happy. The emails from Mike, the chats that we have going on Telegram, like, we actually are all friends, which is so wonderful to me, that it is like a group of people that all get along and can joke with each other. And the fact that the show is kind of like a small sliver of all that is kind of amazing.
And I really hope that people who listen regularly feel part of that, because we definitely also have a lot of fun interacting with them too.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, it's really great to like see people from the show interact with folks about things that aren't even comic book related. Like to see people who we regularly talk to on the show Twitter also talking to you guys, and you know, chiming in about some comic or talking about wrestling or whatever, and seeing hey, did you see this article, and then they tag a handful of us. Like, that's really cool. And then to see you guys without the show Twitter interacting like is like organically is just like fucking cool. Like, we're building this really cool mesh of people that just kind of like are in this little tiny community, this very niche community. Yeah, I mean, and I'm really excited for the next zine, specifically to show off some of that stuff that you were talking about, Paul. I think one of the things we're going to do is throw some screenshots and some chat combos and tweets and stuff into the zine for people that may have missed them. That's going to be really cool. That was such a great idea. I don't remember who threw that in there, but
that's
that
me.
was such a great
I take
idea.
screenshots all the time of like dumb shit from group chat. So I need to throw those in a doc and send them over, because especially out of context, I feel like they're just so dumb and hilarious. But also such a perfect vignette of us.
Yes, totally. Yeah, the show is great. I'll just say that. That's like my minimalist sum up. I can't believe that, like, I don't know, Paul, you nailed it on the head. Like, this is just it's a really cool community that we built, and now we're continuing to do so. Like, that's the best part. It's not like we're sunsetting anything. It feels like we have, like, there isn't a light at the end of the tunnel. The tunnel's still going. That's a weird way to say that, but like, we've still got this big long path ahead of us. I don't see the show going away, so like, that's a great thing. I'm not tired of it. I'm not like exhausted, because I'd worry that if I weren't driving it, the show might flounder, and I'm not even remotely tired of it. I just want to keep doing it. It's like I built my life schedule around it. Every Sunday, this is what I do: sit down to record with you guys to talk about all sorts of stuff, because otherwise I don't think I'd get as much comic book interaction with folks, because as I've said on the show many times, I hate talking about comics with people. Except for on the show. It's like it's so bizarre, because there is that thing like you were talking about before, Paul, where there's a lot of negativity out there with comics, and so when you start to bring up that conversation, it can get really rough really fast. Yeah. But I know that we can have conversations where we have differing opinions, and it's never going to come to blows. We're listening to each other.
And I want to, make a point here to say I think a good example of that is the episodes that Kara and I have done this year. And I want to say shout out to Kara since she's not here in this episode. But I think me and her did 3 minisodes this year, past year. One of them was a Grant Morrison one, which was that exactly, where we had differing opinions about Grant Morrison, but it wasn't an argument or a back and forth thing. We had a legit conversation about what I liked and what she didn't like. And I think we didn't convince each other otherwise, but it was a very honest and fair and, personable conversation back and forth about something that we disagreed on. And I think those conversations are very rare. So we did that one. I think we did one about the one we did at the end of the year with the In Memoriam episode, and then we did one about Superman for Action Comics 1000. I really, really cherish those types of conversations. And the fact that they happen on this show is really wonderful.
Yeah, those were very good episodes. I really enjoyed them.
Yeah, I agree. We've had a lot of really positive feedback about those episodes too. I'll just say that. Good. So, so Paul, if you just want to run off do your own thing, I don't blame you. But
going off of that too, part of what I was trying to do with this as an interview is make it less about like this. We're going to talk about comic books, and more just like, hey, we're friends hanging out, because I feel like that is part of the show. That's an important part of our show. Like, hey, we're friends hanging out. Sometimes we talk about comics, but sometimes we talk about death or other things.
I like that was kind of the tagline for This Is Not an Interview. It was always, we talk about these 9 things and a little bit about comics. Like, that was great. I really enjoyed that.
But just, the whole idea that we're just all a bunch of friends and we can have conversations about things that sometimes we won't agree on, but like at the end of the day, we care about each other, and it's not... there's no drama here for the sake of drama,
Yeah. Well, we're kind of running out of tape, so I'm gonna say we should wrap this up. One really cool stat that I want to just call out from the survey that we did, which if you're listening to the show, thank you so much for doing that. It really means like a lot to us to actually know what people want to hear from the show, what they like, what they don't like. Because if there are things that you don't like about our show, we want to make it better for you. And sometimes we can't do everything, but we do really try to address some of the things that were brought up. And you'll see that hopefully in the coming year. Some of the things people brought up that they said, hey, could you do more of this? Could you do less of that? We're going to work on that. And we're always trying to improve the show, make it better. Like, I think we've got our formula for the episodes down pat. I don't think that that's changing. But otherwise, like, what was really interesting to me was that 30% of the people that took the survey had only listened to the show in the last 3 months, and the other 30% had been listening for 1 to 2 years. So it's really interesting to see this huge difference in the listeners that we have. And I mean, this is just a small sample size. We had 31 people respond to this, and then we had like 20% of people that said they'd been listening for 6 to 12 months, which is pretty cool. And I think we've seen a lot of growth in the show, and I'm hoping that in the next year we're going to see even more of that as we start to push our presence out even more, getting more creator interviews, getting more interviews with comic-centric folks, not just creators. We're hopefully going to do more and more of that this year. I'm making it a 2019 goal to bring back at least 1 or 2 of the people we talked to in the last 2 years onto the show. We might have to call up our boy Dennis Camp, or we might have to call up Ben Saunders, or somebody. Maybe we'll get Hope Nicholson back. Who knows? It'll be a whole thing, but I want to try to get those people back to be like, hey, you were on the show before. Let's talk about something else other than maybe your comic or your thing at the Mopop. What else is new? What else can you say about comics? Because you're a person that we appreciate being on the show, and those episodes are always a lot of fun to record.
I had a great 2018 doing the show. I just want to say, I thought it was fantastic. Comics fatigue is a very real thing. I get burned out on comics a lot, but every time I'm on an episode, I sit down and I hear Mike's enthusiasm or other people jazzed about comics. It reinvigorates my love for the medium. So it serves that purpose for me. And I'm excited for that to continue, I guess, in 2019.
Let's do this little credits thing that we do. You can follow us all on Twitter. You can follow Kate at Kate Elfier. You can follow Paul at Oh Hi Polly. You can follow Tia at Portrait of Madame X, The French Way. You can follow Nick at Death Star Plans. You can follow me at Mike Rappin. You can follow the show at IRCB Podcast, where we post and share comic news, art, sass, fun conversations, really cool things that we see. Sometimes screenshots from our internal chat. And that's pretty much it. I didn't give anyone credit notes, so whoever wants to take one, go for it.
You can check out our Goodreads group at goodreads.com. You can give us a recommendation for what we should read in 2019 right now. You can also visit ircbpodcast.com, where we have a pronunciation guide and merchandise.
Be sure to rate, subscribe, and review the show. Tell your friends about it. We really appreciate that type of interaction, and it does help the show out a lot. So thank you.
You can email the show with comments, questions, jokes, etc. at ircb@destroythecybe.org.
We'd also love to have you subscribe to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/IRCB podcast. We have exclusive audio there and articles, early access to top of my pile posts, as well as early access to episodes, and much, much more.
Yeah, we've got a lot of really cool stuff probably coming directly to the Patreon this year, so make sure you go out there and subscribe. Even at the tiniest tier, you'll still get access to those episodes. Infinity Shred is the best band in the universe. They do all the music for our show. Xander, boy, can we just take a moment and just say thanks to Xander real quick?
Xander's the best.
Thanks, Xander.
Thank you, Xander. We did the thing that we know that you hate, and we all talked over each other. So thank you, Xander. You've been a blessing to this show more than I think you know. Without this show, it literally would not be possible for us to make it and record it and put it out on time. You are the absolute best person that I know. I love you to death. Thank you for 2018. I want to say thank you to Kate, Tia, Paul, Brian, Nick. Who else is on the show? Renee. Kara. I'm sorry. Everyone that's been on the show, all of our guests that we've had. Kelly's not here, but I want to say thank you to her for letting me take up every Sunday of her life with this show. She's the best person. I love her to death. I mean, it's probably why I'm getting married to her later this year. Thank you to the listeners. You guys, I cannot express, I've said it the last couple weeks, I cannot express how amazing it feels to know that this show means a lot to you. The fact that you guys are reaching out and telling your friends about it and recommending us to other people, it is unbelievable. We've come so far in 5 years. I can't wait to see what the next 5 years have to offer. So until next time, comics are good, so are you. Thank you again, you guys. This has been an awesome episode. It's been a great year. I'm really excited to see what we do in 2019, and we will check you next week when we've got some really cool stuff coming. That's all I can say. Thank you. Do you guys follow that Star Wars text post account?
What is this?
It's just it's SW text post where people just take this. Whoever
This
runs
is a Twitter
it,
account?
It's a Twitter account. Sorry.
Okay.
And they just take screen caps from the Star Wars movies and then match them with Tumblr posts, like Tumblr, just like one line text posts.
I don't know if I know the exact account, but I've
know retweeted it a handful of times, but
okay.
My favorite, they just tweeted a second ago. It's a picture of Han, arguing with Leia. And the caption is, "You think you want me to shut up? I have to listen to myself even when I'm not talking."
Same, Han.
I just... the whole thing is, it's very, twisted headcanon stuff, but it's all, they're just changing the canon just to suit whatever needs, but, there's a picture of Rey, and it's you think I really give a fuck? I can't even read.
What?
Oh my god. The whole account is it is full of gems, and it's fantastic. I have Twitter notifications turned on for it because they don't tweet very often, but boy oh boy when they tweet does it warm my heart. It's the perfect warm up I need in the middle of the day. It's there's a picture of two pictures, and one of them is Obi-Wan, and it says, "Do you ever think?" And the next picture is Anakin, and he says, "No, and you can't make me."
My favorite, I think it was a Tumblr, and it was a mashup of basically the prequels and some of Rebels, but with Brooklyn Nine-Nine quotes.
Oh my god. That is
Coruscant
fantastic.
99 or something it's called. It is so funny. I kill myself laughing at that. When I first discovered it, I basically just went through and liked their entire backlog of posts.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if anyone's ever done a Fast and the Furious Episode 1 pod racer mashup, because I think that would be fucking insane.
Natural fit, yes.
If the question is who, the answer is you.
Oh my god,
that
just seems perfect.
There was a Tumblr account for a while that was running that just took Arrested Development quotes and put them on screen caps of Game of Thrones. And oh man, it was. If I could find, I think they might have shut down, but man, it was fucking perfect.
I'm sure there's a Cersei that says, "Look at me getting off on being withholding."
Oh my god!
Oh, I'm sure. Oh, I'm sure.
My new favorite thing is the Ozyman Game of Thrones recaps, because I actually missed a lot of stuff in my binge watch.
Right.
Which I'm learning now, because also I fast forwarded a lot of stuff that I didn't like.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, they're pretty funny.
Oh boy, yeah. That's I was just talking to somebody who's also doing like a rewatch, and I was like, man, that's a lot of that to take in. I think in a short amount of time.
I think it was bad for me. I think that it honestly was like bad for my health as a human being to watch all of Game of Thrones in like 3 weeks.
Oh jeez. Yeah. Ugh, I really, I think I've told people, it's like, yeah, you should watch Game of Thrones, but like, space it out, or else. I don't really know what the else is.
I was talking to someone about this actually, and he was like, you know, imagine having to, like, you're binge watching it, that's an experience, but imagine having to like digest everything over a period of a week, and that's, I think, maybe how some people were able to stomach some of the more awful shit, like some of the Ramsay shit, because it wasn't like a relentless cavalcade of flaying and penis cutting off.
Yeah, that whole season, I can't imagine watching it back to back, because it would just be like a fucking overload.
I fast forwarded a lot of it because I just was like, I can't. And also, like, God, the Night Watch shit is so fucking boring.
Yeah.
That one episode that was like all at the wall, I literally skipped the whole episode. I was just like, I can't do this.
You mean you don't love watching Jon Snow just brood for 50
fucking
minutes?
Milquetoast, boring ass motherfucker.
That's pretty much how I felt about every character on that show. God, I fucking hated that show when I tried to watch it. So
I really had to push through the first several episodes in order to be like, okay, I am marginally interested in these 3 characters. Like, I honestly feel like Cersei, she earned that throne. Everyone just needs to sit the fuck down.
Well, in a world full of brutality, like, yeah, she did. Like she's playing the game, right? According to the rules, and everyone's like, Cersei, you're the worst. It's like, no, motherfucker, this is how the game runs.
That's how it works.
Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Also, like, I'm really fascinated by her. Because, like, okay, she fucking hates Tyrion because he killed her mother in her mind. Mm-hmm. And, like, she's also just such a freaking psycho about her own kids that they're, like, I want to know more about that. Like, what was her mother protecting her from that she was then exposed to when her mother was no longer there, that she then turns around and feels like she wants to protect her kids from, to the extent that she tolerates Joffrey?
Yeah. That's the question we all want answered, I think.